Again, maintenance roundtable. Today is Thursday, October 3rd. And my name is Dan Hendy. I'm the education manager here and also manager of the Maintenance Institute. And we're here to talk about all things maintenance. We have our, finally the sun has come out. We are looking at the end of our summer and going into fall and winter. And so that brings up a lot of different topics for discussion. As always, you can use the chat if you want to enter some question or something in there. I'll have that up on the screen and looking at it. Of course, this is a meeting, a Zoom meeting, so you're able to unmute yourself and speak if you have any questions or want to contribute to the conversation. I see we have we got 9 folks on so far. And I do have some questions that some people left, although I don't see, oh, Joshua was here, and Joshua left a question about aeration and reseeding operations. And Joshua, do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, just I was curious because we in Philadelphia struggle a lot with keeping a good stand of grass for multiple reasons, and I just wondered what other people around the state do when it comes to fall seeding, both their ball fields, but also just general if you have neighborhood parks that you do, and if you have enough staff to do it in house, or if do you have contractors that you do. I mean, I'd love to hear what other people do and kind of what their best practices are.
Okay. Let me ask you, while other folks are thinking about their answer, let me ask you a follow-up real quick. Are you still using those fields?
Well, yes, that's another struggle that we have. I think typically teams aren't wanting to push. Like one of my ideas was, hey, push your play a little bit closer into the summer so that you're ending around the time when we want to start seeding, which ideally was, middle of last month into, towards the end of this month. So right now, soccer pretty much in Philadelphia doesn't end until like November. So keeping people off of it can be a huge struggle and one of the reasons why we can't grow grass very well.
Does anybody have something to add to help Josh out there? Come on, folks, this is a round table. You can't get on a round table and say nothing. Oh, we have a quiet group to begin. Crickets here today. Josh, go ahead.
I don't have any suggestions. I'll just say we have a field that's gone through some really serious overuse, and we tried to rope it off and people just moved the ropes. So we're up against the same thing. I don't have suggestions because, same
problem.
Yeah, and I think we've actually had some success with signage, but I think a lot of our parks are encased in, chain link fence or something that can be locked that you would have to hop it to get on, which I have seen people do. But we've also used this sign where we'll say, kids deserve grass to play or something along those along those lines. So it'll sort of reinforces that fact that, hey, kids are playing here, like everybody wants some nice grass. Here's what's going on with the field that's being renovated. So that's why I just wondered, what other places do. I've talked with New York City and one of the managers there, and they had the same exact problem that we had. So it's not like just because you have more money, you're more successful in those problems.
Mm-hmm. We had I think it was in late summer, we had this, what to do with, your fields in summer. And his name's escaping me, but the gentleman who was doing the presentation was saying, one of the best things you can do is in summer is don't cut it. Because when you're cutting the lawn, you know, you're exposing it to more wear and tear down deep, and it's easier to get at the roots. And having the longer grass cover actually protects the lawn and the soil. So I think that same logic might apply. Although I know your athletes probably would appreciate a more trim field, but if you could get away with it, leave the grass height as high as you possibly can. And that's going to help you no matter what the weather, whether it's a drought or excessive rainfall.
And that is what we've also struggled with, right? Like I oversee our turf contract, and it's a beast, right? It's big. We cut 2,600 acres every 2 weeks. So it's not a small feat. And during the high point of drought season this year, which Philadelphia, we had no rain this year, almost at all. And multiple times where grass has got shocked and gone into dormancy. But and there was a point at which I was going to, completely shut down and not do any mowing. Problem is that those contractors then start laying people off, and it's hard to get them back and get on schedule. So, we modified the height at which we were mowing, and basically had to say, like, don't go to places if if there's nothing growing. Weeds were still kind of growing, but the rest wasn't. So.
Yeah, that's an extra wrinkle I didn't even consider, having a contractor and then being contracted to have so many cuts, things like that. Yeah, we all know the secret is no use, right? And how can you do that? Have you ever considered any artificial surfaces?
We do, but I don't know if anybody's read, anything. I don't know about this area. I don't know where everybody's from, but we had recently gotten a lot of pushback with artificial turf when it comes to PFAS and other, environmental agents that aren't the healthiest for both the user but also the environment. But my take on it is, yes, of course, artificial turf is not great for the environment, but when you have such heavy use, like in South Philly, when you have, so many people packed into one area and you only have a limited number of fields, I think strategically doing it makes sense. So there have been a few places that have gotten it. But I'd be curious to know, like, other places in Pennsylvania, especially rural areas, if they have any, and if anyone's ever requested that.
And PFAS, that's the tiny granular rubber that's ingrained in those.
No, actually, I believe it's the type of plastic that's in the actual grains of the grass. But it might be leaching from the rubber as well. But I'm not so well versed in that. I just have read up on, what people are kind of complaining about. To me, it's sort of similar to the way that spraying happens, right? Like people freak out about the herbicides, but when it's used in a responsible way, the effects are fairly minimal on the overall health of the surrounding area. So that's maybe heavy agricultural farming is where you're getting like a lot of point source and non-point source contamination, but in most of our parks we do very, very little, if any at all, anymore.
Well, I know Autumn has spoken, and Sam left a message in there that she has no suggestions here either. Anyone else, what do you do with your fields in the fall? Anybody else want to chime in, and how bad does it get? And how do you make it better in the spring, so to say? Well, Josh, I don't know how much help we've been for you there.
Our fields don't get that much use that we have those issues. And then ours are used sometimes in the fall as well. So we haven't really experienced we haven't really experienced the issue because of, I guess, not as much use, or, we use them year round as well.
It's good.
Do
I
you-
mean, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, do you have in-house people that like your own staff cut it, or for you, is it like a public works or?
Yeah, we have our own park grounds crew. And so we have our different baseball field, little league field, softball, soccer, and our in-house grounds crew maintains infields, outfields, and all of that.
So that makes it a little more flexible for you, Tammy. You can tell them not to cut and when to cut.
Yes, and we check them, regularly, and limit playability as well if we think it's going to be too damaging. So we'll, we check, and if there's bad, inclement weather, we'll have our park rangers contact the league and say, look, fields aren't playable. We couldn't get them to a point where you can play. And then we offer them a reschedule or something.
And can I just ask what area you're in?
Lancaster County.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, my big takeaway from that that maintenance workshop, which is recorded and I believe it's online, and it's on our website, was the longer you can leave the grass, the better off you're going to be. Everything else being equal.
Yeah, the proper technique is only take a third of the total growth each
Right.
time you cut. The problem we have, of course, is that does not happen. It gets cut way shorter, and we only cut once every 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Ball fields are once every week, and even then I still get complaints from constituents saying, "Oh, our field's too long. The kids are trying to play soccer and the ball's getting hung up," and so.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I hear you. It's a balance. All right. Anyone else have some words of wisdom for Josh, or lawn maintenance in general? And I assume it's a difference between your lawns and your sports fields too.
Yeah. Recently we had a workshop with our Park Friends Network, which are a bunch of volunteers, and we did like a grass workshop where we explained some of the do's and don'ts and stuff that they could do to contribute to growing grass in their neighborhood parks, because the dogs really do damage it when you have a huge concentration of dogs. And we actually put clover in the mix to help. Clover's typically a weed, but really a weed's only something you don't want growing there. And if it's something that can survive the sort of foot traffic that they get, the low mowing heights, it can survive. So we've suggested it. We did not suggest it for fields, but.
And I've seen papers that back that up, or new articles and things that back that up, that clover is really actually a very good ground cover, much more hardy than regular grass, and able to withstand a lot more. But again, you have to get people adjusted to it and used to seeing it. That's a hard part.
Yeah.
All right, I know Kristen, and I hope I'm saying the name right, Aaron, had questions about volunteers. And Kristen, you want to elaborate a little bit on what's going on with you?
Yeah, hi everybody. Kristen Ziegler. I am in the trails section of the Bureau of Recreation and Conservation at DCNR. Came from for those of you that don't know me, came from the local Parks and Rec world in the Carlisle borough. But I am here today. I wanted to ask a trail related question on trail maintenance. And bring up that topic to see what folks are looking for in the world of trail maintenance and related to training. Are you looking for any type of trail maintenance training? Are you training volunteers? What needs do you have out there in the local world of Parks and Rec when it comes to trail maintenance? So before we get into, you know, any feedback, just know I'm on the planning committee for our statewide trail summit that'll be here in Dauphin County in Harrisburg next year, 2025. And would love to see some folks from the Parks and Rec world there at the Trail Summit. As you all know, trails are one of the #1, you know, outdoor rec experiences that folks are participating in, and trails are big on the list of interests for all Pennsylvanians and everybody worldwide, I think. So yeah, feedback on training needs for trail maintenance. That's kind of what I'm looking for.
So Kristen, in Lancaster County, we have again, a good grounds crew and trail crew, and arborists. We do not allow volunteers to do anything that involves power tools. We do in-house chainsaw safety trainings and those type of trainings for our own staff. But
How
as
do
it
you
comes,
do those, Tammy? You say you do them in-house. Do you have somebody that's knowledgeable in-house that you have running those trainings, or do you
yeah,
consult?
I think our chief arborist might do them. I would have to check on that and get back to you. I'm 99% sure we do them in-house. We have our local search and rescue teams do water rescue training for any trail maintenance that happens along waterways, just for safety. But you kind of asked two questions. So for volunteers, we allow track litter pickup. We allow, like plantings, like, erosion control, anything that they can do. We do any of the training in-house, or we ask them to come, knowing what they're doing. We only let specific groups do anything that involves, structural integrity or infrastructure. And then the rest of our volunteer groups, we go to just general trash litter cleanup, and then just trail observation, walking the trails, letting us know, is there something along the trail? Is something eroded? Those type of things. But we don't have any official training type program for volunteers.
Okay. Are your volunteers also doing any vegetation cutbacks or invasive removal, or anything like that?
Yeah, sometimes we'll have a group want to do some invasive removal, and those are usually university students that are part of a course at Millersville or F&M, or like a PA Master Naturalist will, allow them to do some invasive control as well. We've had a school do a tree planting along one of our trails, and they went through outside training about utilizing tubes and, placement. And then our chief arborist meets with them and just double checks their plan to make sure it coincides with our plan.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Tammy.
Mm-hmm.
What else? What about down there in Chambersburg? I don't know if Sam's on the call still. Anybody else? What are you doing for trail maintenance?
Kristen, what were the dates for that trail summit?
Yeah, good question. I will get those here.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Hey, Kristen. Sorry.
Hey, Sam.
Multitasking. I'm
Yes.
still here participating. We still have it in-house, meaning like our maintenance team is taking care of it. We have had a new council member that is also part of our rec advisory board that is very, very, very interested in our trail system. So he is back on the rec advisory board, and he's also on our shade tree commission with the borough. So I think a lot of upcoming changes, maybe with our trail might be happening. But I know a couple of years past, he was really pushing to get it snow plowed in the wintertime, which with how our current trail system is with gravel and such, that just was not going to be feasible in certain narrow areas. But I really see that that could be revisited. So hopefully that's helpful. If I missed
Yeah.
anything or didn't answer anything, let me know.
Okay. I'm going to throw the dates for the Trail Summit in, is there a chat in Zoom? I forget.
Yes, there is.
Is there? Oh, there it is. Sorry.
And while you're doing that, I will tell you, Kristen, I was just helping to coordinate a workshop for the Philadelphia Area Circuit Trail Coalition. And it was an all-day workshop, and they did a survey prior to see what folks were interested in learning more about. And the three topics that came up were invasive species, volunteer recruitment and training, and erosion control. And so we did I think people had the opportunity. We did 3 presentations in the morning, each one about a half hour on each of those subjects. And then in the afternoon, they got out onto a trail with one of the experts and had a little work session, so to say, to show people what it might look like when you were doing those things.
And Dan, you said it was the top 3 were invasives, erosion control,
Mm-hmm.
and what was
And
the other one?
volunteer recruitment and training.
Thank you.
I think people find that they can get volunteers, but if you don't train them correctly or do the orientation correctly, you might be in more trouble than it's worth.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's helpful. I work with the circuit trails. I cover that region, so I have a lot of projects that are a circuit trail, and so I try to be up with that group. But those are definitely reoccurring themes that come up with trail management, trail maintenance, and maybe we'll be able to pull together some sessions for the summit for next year.
Yeah, I think invasives are one of our biggest issues, right, along trail edges. Because we could try to keep like a 5 to 6 foot mowable border between the trail and the woods, and it ends up being almost impossible because at the height of Japanese knotweed season, it's pushing out so far, and it's such a woody plant that the mowers aren't going to go over it with their rotary mowers. So we struggle with that a lot, and we even have, there's a number of volunteer groups. There's Tacony Creek Watershed Friends that do stuff, and we have the Wissahickon Friends, and so there's a whole bunch of groups, and it still is a struggle. So.
Yeah, Josh, who do you work for? Is it the
Philadelphia Parks and Rec?
Okay, great. I've got a lot of projects with Philly, and I work with the different friends groups, Fairmount and Friends of Wissahickon and Schuylkill. So
yeah, they all do. I mean, they all do some great things, and but it's definitely a struggle even with our own staff of getting them out there and really tackling it. And without spraying back knotweed, like, you really can't get rid of it.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
And Friends of Wissahickon were the ones that actually did the presentation on volunteer management. I guess their reputation for that is really good. So just a
Yeah.
FYI.
Okay.
FYI.
I've heard that. I think they may have presented last year at the Trail Summit with Keystone Trails, I think,
Mm,
on
mm.
volunteer recruitment and management, because Keystone is pretty darn good too. They're doing really good things with Brooke at the helm.
Hey, Aaron, I know you also had a similar question. You want to chime in and tell us what your concerns were?
Oh, my concerns, gosh, I don't have my notes in front of me. Much of the same, volunteer and, you hit the nail on the head there about training the right volunteers. Everyone wants to volunteer, but then if they don't have the right training and you can't work alongside them, then it's twice the work. It's twice the more work for you to organize that and to go behind them to do the job properly and get that done. So much of the same is I'm having problems with that. Any kind of jobs that you guys have that you could comment on that you can walk away from, but give them a task to. I mean, we have a lot of wood chips on our trail. We do wood chips on our trail, and that's great. We have a lot of high school or community service people. I put them on that because it's really easy with a wheelbarrow and a shovel. Also with erosion, I guess it'll be interesting to hear more when you guys have the discussion about erosion. I had a project with the water bars, and the water bars had helped tremendously. They were put in 2 years ago, two summers ago, and I haven't had the same amount of problems as I had in the past for a water bar system. Yeah.
I'm curious if a training was available for folks, some sort of, and for me, I'm focused on trail maintenance. If there was a trail maintenance program that trained volunteers on some basics, if it's invasive removal, if it's pruning tips and basics, if it's certain things, how to safely do X, Y, and Z. I'm wondering if a program like that was available, and I don't know if that's something that the Maintenance Institute would be willing to undertake. But Penn State, there's lots of great organizations out there, that if we could create a program like that, I'm wondering what the interest would be, and maybe starting with this group is a good gauge just from, a couple handfuls of people here. Is that something that you'd be able to maybe send your volunteers to, or if it was online, or, if it was like a one-day workshop, is that something you might be interested in?
Go ahead, put something in the chat. Use one of those emoji things in your what do they call them? Reactions. They're in under the more. There you go. Thumb up. That's a good one too.
Works. Aaron, you like that idea?
Yeah, I can totally see where you're going with that. If something was locally offered, or maybe with the Zoom with that, I would encourage our volunteers to be like, hey, watch this, you'll go to this training thing, and then, come back and we'll get you going. I think a lot of organizations could do that too, where you would be pooling a lot of people that are close to Philadelphia, and then you have a pool or a resource of volunteers that actually have been trained to do that specific area. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could, yeah, Tammy, I see that. If it was free, right? I get that. So money talks, right? But my vision is, you could have this basic trail maintenance training, and then you could go deeper than that and get, chainsaw certification. And you could, if somebody's going to be doing that, like you could have different levels of training for your volunteer groups, depending on what your expertise is and depending on what you want them to be doing.
Yeah, I could almost see it be, like the first video would be a safety first type of video.
Yeah.
Like how to handle a tool, how to lock your tools, how to unlock your tools, how to, walk down a trail with, various tools or, you know, and then maybe another one would be on use of tools, proper use of tools,
Mhm.
and with a demonstration. And then if they were short enough, people could do it for like
Yeah.
2 15-minute videos, and then your volunteers are halfway trained by the time they get out there.
Yes.
And
Understand.
I just wondered too, so one thing for us is that all of our volunteer groups, most of our volunteer groups are not allowed to use powered hand tools or things like that. Besides the ones that are like official groups, like the Friends of Wissahickon, I believe they use some like chainsaws, things like that. So I wonder if anybody else has that struggle, like if you allow them to or not. I suppose with the proper training, maybe they could, but that's another thing we struggled with. That's why I asked about aeration, was because in some of the parks that we're not able to always get to with our own staff, they can't rent an aerator. So, and hand aerators are, we have some that we've given to people, but they're not, for a large area, it's almost impossible to do. So
But you
Yeah,
do allow,
we have a liability about that as well. No, gas powered or mechanical machines. Mostly volunteers, if I'm trusting them or have met them for the first time, or if they're only doing this with a group, it would be handheld tools. And me specifically saying, okay, you can go at it with this fallen tree, but I wouldn't unless they had pruning technique and I knew that they had a certification for PHS or something. I would then trust them about pruning our trees and going at it.
Mhm. Yeah, because I think a lot of departments at the local level aren't fortunate enough to have arborists or real expertise in the maintenance department. They might be more experts in tools and the trades, but maybe not necessarily having the expertise to know what's an invasive versus a non-invasive, how to properly prune trees, things like that, that I could see training, being valuable, not just even for volunteers, but to increase the expertise within your own departments.
yeah, and I think it's fair to say most departments wouldn't go out on a limb and let people use power tools unless they had their own certification and maybe their own equipment or something like that. And then sign every waiver in the book. But I think, you could get a lot of value, even if it's just, wood chipping paths. And once somebody knows what Japanese knotweed looks like, they can go to town, I think,
Yeah. Yeah. As long as you tell them make a pile here and we'll drag it out, we'll load it up and take it out,
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, good. If anybody has any thoughts, I don't want to take over the meeting here. So if anybody has any other thoughts or feedback or suggestions for us, let me know. Or if you want to continue the conversation, I'm happy to do that as well. So
I do
Tammy.
have something separate. Probably I wanted to ask, or I would in the future. What kind of tools do you guys use at your site? What works best? Are you going towards more electric powered things like chainsaws? We have a one leaf blower that's electric. It's not as powerful, but it's nice for light use. And I would trust a volunteer or a student to use that around walkways and pathways in our front doors. But we do have two gas powered ones for the heavier load in the parking lot. I am going to ask for our donations and stuff for electric chainsaw because it'll be less maintenance and all the oil and gas used for that because it is light work when we're not an arborist of cutting down a lot of stuff over the years, but just tools from cutting shears to pruning and weeding some stuff too. If you guys have a favorite tool to use for that, just like to throw that out there. Maybe make a list of it.
Yeah, we actually have a contract with Steel. Well, it's not directly with Steel, it's through a third party, but so we use mostly only Steel stuff because it's easier to purchase. And I do the purchasing. So we use mostly only gas powered. We've gotten into some battery operated stuff for smaller parks, but of course that brings a whole nother challenge, right? Of like keeping enough batteries stocked and keeping them from walking and being charged. But steel is typically what we go with. And we just go with the higher end, not the homeowner stuff, but the specs for commercial use.
There is a lot. I was just sitting in on a webinar yesterday about some landscaping firms that have converted to all electric. And it got a little technical, and you have to be able, like, the whole idea was once you send your crew out, you don't want them coming back to charge.
Dan, I think
So you have to figure out how many batteries you're typically going to use, and prepare for that. And there's these remote charging power stations that you can have. And the idea is while you're having two batteries charged, you could be using the other two and keep flipping off. And I thought that was a lot of work but until they started talking about, well, it's the same as gasoline. You have to, every day you have to refill your tanks, you have to refill the smaller tanks, and then your people out in the field have to refill their little tanks on them. And all that also takes time. And so it looks like as batteries improve and things, I will not be surprised if more and more becomes actual electric.
Yeah,
But
I could guess and imagine with trail work, the closer you are to trail and with visitors passing you by, of course you have a safety zone, but you could hear more with the electric chainsaw and not disturb neighbors and stuff than the gas. There's a big job, definitely the gas, but you have a crew. But if you're a crew by yourself or two people, the electric is light work, and definitely the noise reduction is tremendous.
Yeah, it's more in keeping with the trail environment. But again, if it's a long way from any kind of plug-in, that's when it becomes problematic. Just from my old days when I was working for a landscaper and they wanted to clear a large area, they gave me a weed eater that instead of having the string trimmer on it, had a blade mounted on it. And I found that so useful. Cause I mean, you have to be careful as heck with it. Obviously, it could do a lot of damage, but for clearing like a field or knotweed or something, boy, that was really good.
I've seen that once on our site years ago, but it's been more than 10 years. I don't know. We got rid of the weed eater or something, or how we going to mount one of those, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. They might be illegal by now. I don't know.
No, they have them still, like the steel. Some of our people like the combi system. It's KOMBI. Might be a second I, but I think it's that. And it's basically the motor piece of a string trimmer, but then has different attachments, and you can attach a regular string trimmer. You can attach a heavier duty blade that can go at some of the woody, hardier woody plants. It has brush attachments for brushing off like sidewalks, dust, light snow. There's like a whole bunch of other ones, and we tried it out. And some people liked it a lot and others people didn't. The biggest complaint was, well, our guys were, losing the attachments. And I was like, well, you need to keep better care of them. But,
yeah, all right, I could see that. All right, well, good. Did you get your questions answered, Aaron? All right, so we have about 20 more minutes, and I have other people on, Sam and Matt and Jason and Autumn and Tammy and any other. I guess I first have a question for everyone. has your season been extended this year? You know, with all the late rain and mild weather, I mean, I'm still cutting my grass in October here. Is everybody experience the same thing? Give me a hand or a thumb or something. Shoulder season, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say we're probably a little bit extended. We're still gonna winterize our facilities like we would typically do by October 15th, meaning our comfort stations and water access at the pavilions. We're not staying, doing any of that any later because it's already scheduled. But we don't do a ton of mowing as much anymore because we've tried to go to a lot of native plant meadows and watershed areas and that. But the areas that we are mowing, I guess we're probably mowing a little later than we typically would.
And when you close up in October 15, what does that entail, Tammy?
So we have at our Garden of Five Senses, we have some fountains, so we winterize those. We also winterize all of our comfort stations in the parks and replace with portable toilets. And then at our pavilions, our indoor pavilion is year round. And then we have one that's partially enclosed that we allow rentals year round, but our outdoor pavilion, so we go down to kind of one in each park that's ready to go without water. And then all the others, if someone wants to rent them, are as is between October 15th and April 1st. Now, if we get a very mild spring and they decide they want to de-winterize early, they may do that, but typically it's October. And then we close our primitive campsites too, because we winterize the water access there. But we just basically replace comfort stations with portable toilets and take care of anything that needs done so pipes don't freeze.
Mhm. Thank you for that. It's always interesting. Does most everyone else do something similar?
We do. We start by October 1st, we start winterizing most things. Pools are winterized actually before now, but spray grounds, outdoor bathrooms, things like that. My irrigation starts getting winterized towards the mid of this month. Our mowing season actually this year ends on the 18th, which may be okay. Last year we were okay with the middle of October because things are starting to slow down. Might get some weeds that are still, vigorous enough to grow, but we're usually okay by then.
Thanks, John. And when you say winterize, do you empty the lines or do you fill with anything else or you just empty?
They mostly empty, I believe. Well, irrigation lines, because they're only 4 to 6 inches down, those get completely drained and blown to protect them. And then our plumbers do all the spray grounds. I believe they get completely drained and blown. Those lines do. The bathrooms, I'm not entirely sure with those. I'm assuming the same thing. When they do winterization, it's like a legit,
Yeah. And when do you open up again? When's the
We start I'm gonna say about April 1st, but sometimes earlier than that. I think through end of March. Depends on the weather. Pools, obviously, they don't, our pools don't. We have 70 pools, well, 68 or something now, but and those start getting opened up, I believe, mid-June, somewhere in there. They're only open for three months or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we promise that we will be fully de-winterized by April 1st. But again, like I said, if the weather's better, then it's just a bonus. But April 1st is our opening of.
Thank you, Tammy, and thank you, Kristen, for getting on.
Thank
I'll be
you.
sure to give you a shout.
All right. Sounds good. Bye, everybody.
All right, the other part is, I was wondering, is there anything, so you have all the lawnmowers, and Joshua, you said you contract out, so this may not apply to you, but how do you guys, manage your equipment over the winter? I mean, what do you do to shut them down? Is it sort of like the regular homeowner, empty the oil, take out the spark plug, empty the gas, and hope for the best type of thing, or do you guys do anything different?
Man, I can't answer that. We have a whole crew that we have an incredible maintenance compound. So we have a whole crew that takes care of all of our, I mean, we have bush hoggers and bucket trucks and dump trucks and mowers and, all of that stuff. I buy it for them. They take care of it. So sorry.
It's okay. That's okay, Tammy.
Yeah, Aaron said the gas additive, we also do that.
So do you leave the gas in the tank then?
Certain equipment does, I believe. Some of the
Okay.
smaller stuff they empty.
Yeah, I leave it in just to have the additive with ethanol shield, stuff that we add to it. Yeah, if I can and will drain, I would probably drain it all from smaller machines. That's a mixed gas, a lot of mixed gas stuff.
Good, thanks. All right, and I'm guessing your staffing changes over the winter too, anyone?
We have a base crew, like we have a bridge crew, a trails crew, a grounds crew, a buildings crew that are full-time, regular, and then we hire seasonal mowers and then seasonal assistants that help with landscaping and general pavilion leaf blowout and all that. So we probably hire 15 to 20 seasonals for the late spring through early fall season. But then we also have our regular full-time employees.
That to me, if I was guessing, that sounds pretty typical, right? Yeah. Tammy, does your trail crew try to keep the trails open through the winter, like with the snow and everything?
Yeah, now, I mean, we have so many different types of trails. We have one that is fully paved. And then we have a few rail trails that are crushed stone. And then we have lots of different types of trails in different parks. So we don't plow anything, not that we get snow anymore. But yeah, so we try to keep the parks and the trails open all winter long. Now, if there's, a big ice storm and things are down, or I don't know, a hurricane or whatever, it takes a little while to get them back open, but they will, they'll respond as the weather requires it to be responded to.
But Tammy, you said that you don't do plowing. Does someone else do your plowing, or?
We don't, I'm sorry, I should have said we don't plow any trails.
Okay.
We do have a whole in-house plow crew, and our crew that does plowing in the park also plows for other county buildings, like our youth intervention center, the prison, sidewalk at the environmental center, all of those type of things. So they do all of the plowing and shoveling for the entire county government. Not that we've needed to do much of that lately, but.
Yeah, we've been lucky with that too.
Yeah, that always helps save the budget when there's not a lot of plowing.
The one thing I did want to ask, we are having a hard time with kind of our council, perhaps, in our capital improvements plan. We put our equipment, mowers, gators, things like that. And we are long due over by a couple years for a couple new gators, a mower, a couple things like that. And they, again, they are not approving for us to receive new equipment when it is highly needed. So just curious, is anyone else having issues with that if they're in a municipality as such, and maybe some advice of how to go about it when we are in dire need of the new equipment or things they just keep getting Band-Aid and it's not a good fix for us.
Is it
Excellent.
that they? Sorry, Dan.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, is it that they is it that political thing where they can't like ribbon cut a new piece of equipment and that's why they're not contributing, or is there another reason?
From my understanding, it's being told that other departments in the borough need it greater than we do. So then they're pulling it to another area, which we don't obviously make the money, but it's hard when, you know, our equipment's used daily for years on end, and it's just a hard.
All right.
There
Thank
you
you,
go.
Tammy.
And I'm sorry, I don't know what our work order system is. I can find that out for the next time. But I know we have one and I use it, but I don't necessarily know what it's called. Because usually I just make a phone call and don't have to officially put in a work order like everybody, like most other people. But I do know that we have one.
So Sam, did they solve your problems?
Yes, a little bit. Yes.
Hey, one of the things I would suggest is I can't remember the name of the account, but sometimes you'll have an account in your budget for equipment replacement, basically. And it's just like a percentage of your budget every year, like 1 or 2% every year. And then when it comes time to replace an equipment because of, you know, an accident or just overuse, you already have that money there that you can use. And hopefully, and you have to make special arrangements to have that amount carry over from year to year. But if it's built in your budget, then it's harder for other people to touch it, so to say.
Okay, that's a good idea.
That's called a cap reserve account. And
Thank you.
we do get that here at the park. And that is kind of, it's not discretionary, but we can use it if we need to have a grant match or something like that, or if there's something I didn't budget for. So we break ours down in the parks department. And I don't remember, I think it's 10%. So the pool has the cap reserve account, the grounds crew, and then like recreation, like pavilion rentals, all of those things. So there's a park and a pool, so that if I need something specific, like all of a sudden all my umbrellas got damaged and I can't just replace 2 a year, I can then order 20 out of our cap reserve account.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else have comments or some observations for Sam? And it is okay to call you Sam, right?
Oh yeah, thank you. Does anyone lease their equipment?
We do have a lease just to like a contract set aside for emergencies. So like the first year of my contract started for mowing, one of the contractors was struggling to catch up and staff enough, so we utilized our own staff to work in that district. And ours is through, I believe it's through Herc Rentals. And yeah, but we pretty much only rent or lease, you know, something on a shorter term basis because it can get very expensive.
Anyone else have experience with leasing? Ada says, Aaron, excuse me. All right. All right, I can see right now the time is 12:58. I want to be mindful of everybody's work time and where you need to be and things like that. So I'm gonna say it's last round for you to get your questions in or to get some feedback, and I'll open it up.
I
All right.
have a really incredibly general question. So we, Stroud Region, we have 3 municipalities that all participate, and the maintenance is all done piecemeal. Some our organization does, some the municipalities still do. And it's not ideal, but you know, it's what we're working with. But we want to show that it could be a little bit more efficient. If the commission was doing more of it and it was all kind of coordinated. Part of the challenge is that the way the municipalities budget right now, my park caretaking staff, which I only have 2 of them for all the parks, but they aren't budgeted to come on until middle of April. And then I'm budgeted to keep them until about middle of November. And obviously middle of April is very late to be starting park caretaking. So the general question honestly is, does anybody have like a handbook of this is the time of year that these things need to be happening? So that we can kind of show, hey, we need these caretakers to be starting earlier in the year so that we can make sure that our ball fields are ready to go and that kind of thing.
So sort of like a schedule for maintenance tasks,
Mm-hmm.
the Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you almost need like a matrix
Mm-hmm.
that shows like here's where the overlap is and here's where your hot seasons are.
Yeah.
I do not have that, but that's a great thing to have.
I could be mistaken, but I believe there is something like that on our Maintenance Institute website. Now, I'm
Okay.
new, but I'm gonna go take a look, and if I find it, I'll share it with everyone.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. So I have schedule matrix for Parks and Rec. Yeah,
Perfect.
if I could come across it, it's yours, Autumn.
Thank you.
Great question, though. And Josh, thank you for yours and for staying online and visible. It's always nice to have a face I can talk to, besides all these random names. So I really appreciate that. But for right now, I think it's a little bit after 1 o'clock, and I'm going to let everyone get back to work. And Samantha says to everyone, you could also check that RPA forums. They may have something for those schedules also. So that's another great idea. Thank you, Sam. But take care, everyone. Enjoy the season. That's right. Halloween's coming up. I want to see some good pictures from everyone about the days and everything. Yes, we do, Tammy. All right. Everyone, take care. Have a good day. Have a good weekend, and I'll see you all soon.